This is John Hupalo from Invite Education. Next Wednesday, August 2nd, My College Corner is going to release a conversation I had with Dan Welter, Associate Dean of Students at Washington State University. We talked at length about what college freshmen can expect when they arrive on campus for the first time. Let's pick up an excerpt from that conversation about dealing with roommates. Well, let's touch on some of those areas that show the basically freshmen have the most concern about, and top of the list is the roommate, right? It's also changed. I know that you do your roommate pairings, and just generally for schools, are students meeting their roommates online and sort of coordinating in advance? At one point, there were these things like roommate agreements where how is that all shaping? What are the current college freshmen thinking about with regard to their roommates?
Yeah, so we see a lot of first-year students are connecting with their roommates online, so Facebook or Twitter, whatever the fun social media, Snapchat even now is really fun. So students certainly, I would encourage, if you've got the letter and you can find your roommate ahead of time, connect with them, ask them questions about who they are, where they're from, what are they interested in. Your roommate is a great initial resource, an initial place to connect in when you get on campus. Certainly once you're on campus, you won't be alone. There will be people here, don't worry. But there's lots of resources. You're gonna have a resident advisor, resident assistant, who's a student who's living in the building or on the floor with you. Institutions have different models, but you certainly will have someone. And you also typically have a professional staff, a residence hall coordinator, a residence hall director. Institutions call them different things, but there's full-time professional staff who are there to help as well. And so, those are also really great resources that'll be there to connect in. Roommate agreements do still happen, which is great. I think it's a good way to have those conversations that sometimes are a little bit more uncomfortable. What time are you? Are you an early morning person, late night? Do you use your cell phone alarm or do you still have an alarm clock? How are we going to deal with cleanliness in the room? A lot of roommate agreements go over that, and conflict happens, right? Like somebody's going to come in the room really late one night. And so having that roommate agreement to reflect back on and say, okay, so this isn't exactly how this is playing out now that we're here, and how are we going to deal with this? Those sorts of pieces. If the conflict continues to escalate, I always encourage getting help. So getting some support from that RA or somebody in the residence life office, residence hall association or something like that. So that then you've got that system of support to help, because sometimes those conversations are, of course, challenging, particularly for young adults.
Yeah, and I think you gave the first piece of the best advice, which is whenever a student finds themselves in a situation and they feel uncomfortable, go find somebody who can help. And I know my daughter was an RA, a resident assistant on a floor, and it was really important to have a good relationship with the RA and the RA. They're trained. These just are not kids who show up who decide they want to live. They're trained what to do when any of these situations arise. So I think that's a really great piece. So you have to ask the $64,000 question, Dan. So I show up and, my roommate and I are never going to get along. I go and I talk to the RA and, they say, look, try to make peace, but it's not going to happen. What recourse do the freshmen have to try to take care of that situation?
Absolutely. So I think every institution handles this a little bit differently. Two of the institutions I've been at have what's called a room freeze that happens the first couple of weeks, where quite honestly, we just ask the students try to make it work. I think initial impressions aside, sometimes we're able to make it work. If it just isn't working after that room freeze period happens, and it's usually a really short time, 1, maybe 2 weeks, then definitely connecting in with the professional staff, the residence life office, your residence hall coordinator, director, whatever their title is, connecting in with that professional staff to say, here's where we're at, here's why we really just can't do this. In many institutions, I would venture to say all, have options for students who simply cannot make the situation work. It's something that we prepare for, and we know that there are just some situations where you're oil and water and you can't, you just can't mix. So I would say make sure you connect in. Some institutions are really going to push to give it a try. And I would encourage that, absolutely. But know that there are options, particularly connecting with that professional staff.
Well, thanks so much for tuning in, and please subscribe to My College Corner on YouTube. You can hear more from Dan about other big issues college freshmen have to deal with, including food on campus and dealing with alcohol. Till next time, remember, saving $1 today is better than borrowing one tomorrow.